everybody. So today we're going to talk about matching shots. Matching shots is obviously a very important part of being a colorist, and it can be tricky to do. It's a lot trickier when cameras are shooting in different color spaces. So we're going to talk about matching shots. One of them was shot with a camera recording Rec. 709, and one of them was recorded with a camera using Sony S-Log. Now I was smart enough actually to take some still pictures with my cell phone camera as we were shooting, and it was my intention to make a video talking about how we set up the shoot and how we lit it and how we adjusted the cameras and how we color corrected it. But it turns out that video was kind of long, so I'm going to break this video up into two parts. The first part is going to be all about the actual shoot, the cameras, the lighting, and how we set it up. So if you're a post guy like me and you really don't care about production, you can skip to part 2 of this video where I just go into the actual nitty-gritty color correcting. Or if you want to know how we set up the shoot and how we color corrected it, you could watch both parts. Anyway, here's part 1, and you can click this link right here, boom, for part 2. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you guys learn a thing or two. We shot a promo with Bob Ward. This is Bob right here. He is one of our reporters and a absolutely fantastic storyteller. He does a series called New England's Unsolved, which is reporting on cold cases, some of them going back more than 30 years, and it's a very popular franchise at the station. So for the May book, we did promos of Bob. And the premise for these promos was kind of simple. We just sat Bob down and we peppered him with questions about the stories and the cases he had been reporting on. And he gave us some great off-the-cuff answers. So I actually took a picture or two of the setup to help explain what's going on. Obviously, here's Bob. So in this shoot, there was 4 monitors. They had still graphics in them with the logo New England's Unsolved. There's 3 big monitors, one here, and one here behind this camera. And there's a 4th monitor, which is a little itty-bitty monitor. It's like, I don't know, 14, 15 inches. And that was on a C-stand. And we put that monitor right in front of this camera. So we used 2 cameras on this shoot, one that shot Rec. 709 and one that shot Sony S-Log. This is a Panasonic AF100 camera. This camera shot Rec. 709. It has a Panasonic Micro Four Thirds Canon adapter on it, which means we can put our Canon Cinema Prime lenses on it. This lens is a Canon Cinema Prime. It's a 24mm lens, and the internal recorder apparently is pretty compressed. I'm not 100% sure of the specs. So what we did was we hooked up this Atomos recorder box externally to this camera, and we recorded it at DNx HD 1920 1080. I believe it was 10-bit, and I think we shot it at 220 megabits a second. I'm not sure. And we did that because on the AF100, the internal recording has a lot of compression to it. This camera obviously was on our cinema slider right here. This is our Sony FS7 camera. Kind of hard to see in the picture, but we have the 85mm Cinema Prime lens on it. This was the main camera shooting right at Bob, and this camera was sliding back and forth. We put these monitors at different depths, so when the camera slides, you get a nice sense of parallax. I'll show you that in a second. And we used 3 lights. We used a light over here. This is, I think, a 2K light. It was massive. We put it in front of a silk screen to give it a really soft, diffused look. We had a backlight on Bob's head right here, the back of his head. And we also used a hair light directly over his head, which gave his hair a nice glow to it. Let's look at another still. This still, admittedly, is not the best still in the world. I shot it pretty quickly with my phone, but you can see the hair light right here. It's shining right down in the top of Bob's head. And then you can get a better picture of the little monitor on the C-stand. You can see the C-stand right here. This monitor is being fed from the output of my camera. This camera was shooting log, but I can't put a Rec. 709 LUT on one of the outputs, so we took the output with a LUT and fed it into this monitor. You can see here the big 2K light. Maybe it's a 1K. No, I think it's a 2K. It was big. We had the biggest screen in front of it. We had a backlight for Bob, and you can get a better view of the slider. We also had, it's hard to see here, this is a light. So this is a better shot of that light. This light obviously is on the floor. It's got the blue gel, and it's illuminating the background here. And you can get a much better shot of the little monitor. This monitor is right in front of the camera, and I'll show you in a second what it looks like when it's slid back and forth. So let's take a look at our setup from overhead. You now know why I do color and not graphics. This is the FS7 camera. There's a big light here. This is the hair light right above Bob's head. This is the backlight for the back of Bob's head. The little blue light on the floor was right here, but I didn't put it in this camera because I didn't want to confuse anybody. And we've got a big monitor here, a big monitor here, a big monitor directly behind Bob, and this little small monitor here. Unfortunately, in the still photos, you really can't see this big monitor because the small monitor was in front of it. But I put that small monitor there because I wanted to get some parallax as this camera slides. So if you look at this, you can see the camera is going kind of back and forth, which gives us some nice parallax. These monitors were staggered, so they kind of have a nice parallax move. This small monitor is right in front of the Panasonic camera, and we got a great parallax move coming off this small monitor onto our Talent. So let's actually take a look at some of these shots now. I'll start first with the Panasonic AF100 here, and watch what happens when I play this shot down and the camera slides back and forth in the slider. It came off and it reveals Bob quite nicely. Now the monitors behind Bob are at different depths. One is closer to the camera than the other, so we get a little bit of parallax in the background. But again, this proves my point. When you're using a slider camera, you need three things to make it look interesting. Something in the foreground, something in the midground, something in the background. We had that little Sony monitor in the foreground. We have Bob in the midground. And then we have the two big monitors in the background. So we've got three different focal planes. So when we move that slider back and forth, we get a really interesting looking shot. So that was our slider shot. Now here's the main camera shot. This is from the Sony FS7. This is our main camera. It's the one that was looking right at Bob. Pretty much that's what the shot does. Straight away, looking right at Bob. You can see behind Bob's shoulder that little blue streak there, that bit of blue. That's from that blue light that was from behind Bob. This is what it looked like coming out of the camera in Sony S-Log. But I'll get more into that in the later video on color correction. Okay, so that's everything you need to know about how we set up the shots. This is the end of part 1. If you want to watch part 2, and I hope you do, that video is all about how I color corrected these spots.